Hello, hello, hello.
I'm
Well,
excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm always excited every
Oh, this
time
one's like
Friday comes, but this is gonna
this is
be
like little wee wee like in my tummy kind of moment. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Are your legs shaking a bit?
A little bit, yeah. I was like nervous in the back channel, like you know what I mean.
Well, boys, how was your week? How was your week?
Whew, it's been a topsy turvy one, man. Like I think life is good in some respects, but obviously I had some bad news coming out of New York, so it makes you reevaluate everything, right? I think we just have to remember that we live once, and we have to take advantage of that. So let's use it as a positive, right?
yeah.
Just shouts out to Kerry and the fam, and just keep marching through this. Yeah,
Good luck,
but yeah.
buddy.
A good solid start. I think we've had a really good start to the year, haven't we? All of us.
But yeah, I mean, this beginning of the year, it's like probably 10 times better than the beginning of the last year. So can't really complain. Super busy, but it's great. But also, I want to remind the people following us, and maybe coming here for the first time. What is the water cooler? Water cooler is a series of live on LinkedIn that was developed to connect brand thinkers and business thinkers with other thinkers and business thinkers on a very easy conversation format. We have secret guests. We have incredible guests as Roddy Sutherland. We had Martin Neumeyer. We had many more very, very smart people in the house. And today we also have an incredible guest. It's live, it's raw, it's real.
Yeah.
It's also streamed on YouTube, and also you can find it on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's happening every other week. Did I forget anything, boys?
No, that's it. And we've got quite a few people registered today from all around the world. So I guess good morning,
Yeah, man.
afternoon, and evening for
Put your
those.
flags up, man. Put your flags. Want to know where you're
Yeah,
at. Get grade your
Yeah.
week. Come on, we always do this.
yeah. Drop
Tell
your
us
name
where
in the
you come
chat,
from.
where you're
Tell
from.
us where you come from and grade your week from 1 to 10.
Let's go.
Yeah. And for those catching the recording later, also comment and ask any questions.
Let's go.
So should we get started?
Let's go.
Because
I'm too excited.
Well, before we go there, Ash, as soon as Wes started talking, someone asked if there are captions.
Yeah, I mean it's totally because of my accent.
We have three completely different accents. No, there are not captions, I think, on a live because this is happening real time, Amanda. But yeah,
I don't know. I'm not sure if LinkedIn does auto-generated captions. We need to look into that. And if not, LinkedIn, listen up.
we have Mexico,
yeah.
New York, Salzburg,
Yeah.
Utah, USA. It's looking good.
Come on, let's go. I'm excited.
Let's go.
Yeah, why is this a special one? Because I mean, we've just said off air that we've been waiting for this guest since last year, just before Christmas. Extremely close to us for a couple of reasons. There's one, the subject strategy. It's what we do, and a lot of you, the joiners, are in this space as well. But more importantly, the guest is someone that we've admired and learned from for years, and I'm sure many of you out there have as well. Most people, in terms of the subject, most people think they know or have a strategy, but a lot of people confuse strategy with a plan. And if that's not a clue, then you just need to check YouTube. Is a plan a strategy? Is it goals or tactics? It's none of them. And our guest today is not only going to talk about, I guess, what strategy is, but he's going to go through his approach, hopefully, and when it comes to strategy. And it's probably a lot more simple than you think. And that's that he's well known for this, simplifying the definition of strategy. So yeah, let's bring him on. He's in 2017, he was named the world's #1 management thinker from a list of most influential global business thinkers. He was continuously ranked in the top 10 thereafter. He's a former dean of the Rotman School of Management, a trusted advisor to CEOs of companies worldwide, including Procter & Gamble, Lego, and Ford. He's written countless Harvard Business Review articles, a Medium blog everyone in business should subscribe to, and really it is brilliant. He's written more books than I can count on both hands, including the world famous Playing to Win. ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Roger Martin.
Yes.
Boop, 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 boop.
Hey,
Welcome
gentlemen.
to the show, Roger.
It's great to be with you.
Is this an early Christmas present or a late Christmas present? What was saying?
It's an all year gift that keeps on giving, huh?
That's it.
I don't know what series of events in my life led me to have this conversation, but something good is happening, Roger. Like, you are the guru, the inspiration for us, and every time that we are developing a strategy, we're thinking, what will Roger will do? What will Roger will say? Are we right on track? So you are the litmus test for all of our work, and I cannot say how happy I am to have you here. Thank you very much. We know that you are super busy.
You're welcome. Well, the reason for all of that is necessity is the mother of invention. So a bunch of crazy guys who were at Harvard Business School at the time. Mike Porter came out with Competitive Strategy, the book that changed the entire strategy world. We decided the world needed another consulting firm, another strategy firm, and so built Monitor Company. And the first product of Monitor Company, so why it happened is Mike wrote the first bestseller, business bestseller. That was not a genre. And Competitive Strategy, which came out in 1980, sold in its first printing 250,000 copies and went on to many more. And so all these business people would call up Mike and say, Mike, come do this competitive strategy stuff for us. Mike wanted to continue to be a full-time professor, which he was till last year when he retired. And so Monitor, a bunch of us created Monitor. And the first thing that people loved in the book was the 5 forces analysis, right? It was just so cool. And so they would come to us and say, do a 5 forces analysis for us, and we did. But then the smart clients figured out, well, okay, now that you know your industry structure is medium attractive or highly attractive or whatever, what do you do with that? Because they would say, Mike's got this other thing in the book, which is low cost versus differentiation, making strategy choices, don't be stuck in the middle. We're kind of stuck in the middle. We'd like one of those other ones. And if you read Competitive Strategy with this in mind, there was no methodology for doing that. And so when clients started to ask us, do what Mike says you should do in the book, we did not have a methodology. Mm-hmm. And so it fell to me because I don't know, nobody else could or would do it. And so between 1987 and 1995, I developed the Playing to Win methodology. The 5 boxes, the choice structuring process. So it was necessity was the mother of invention. It was getting embarrassing when we could say, yeah, you should be differentiated and or low cost. We don't know how to get you there, but you should. That's sort of embarrassing having to say that, and so that's why you're sitting here today. It's because I was desperate.
Amazing.
And on that note, Roger, I think it's important to probably highlight the misconception of the low cost differentiator. It's not cheap pricing, is it? That's not what it is.
No, that's one of the mistakes people make. They think low price is a strategy. It's not. Low price without low cost is a recipe for going out of business. So yeah, absolutely. That's a common mistake. The other common mistake, for what it's worth, Ash, is if you're a differentiator, you don't have to worry about costs. You can spend like a drunken sailor, no problem, because you're a differentiator. And frankly, in the modern world, that's what makes private equity hundreds of billions of dollars a year. They just go find a company that has got good customer kind of connection. They've got loyal customers because they provide an excellent differentiated product, but haven't managed their costs at all, and so they aren't very profitable. And you guys just come in and chop the heck out of the costs and then resell it, typically before they destroy the customer relationships. But one of the tricky things for differentiators is to say we have to have cost proximity with our competitors. So if we can be within a couple of percentage points, let's say, of the cost structure of our competitors and sell for 20% more than our competitors because we've found a set of customers that we can appeal to uniquely, you've got a strategy. If
Yeah.
you have a 20% price premium and 20% higher costs, you don't have a winning strategy at all.
Yeah.
And
I th-
similar
I
on
th-
the other side, just on cost, right? If you don't have a cost structure that enables you to both have lower costs and provide a product that's reasonable quality, then you'll have to discount price dramatically, and you won't have competitive advantage if you have just a crummy product at a low price. Even if you have low cost, that's not a strategy either. So the greatest cost leaders have something that's equal to what's available in the market, but they figure out how to do it at a lower cost. Vanguard Mutual Funds, the world's biggest mutual fund company. Its S&P 500 index fund is as good as anybody else's. Customer service is as good as anybody else's, but its cost structure is way lower than anybody else's, partially because they have $7 trillion of them that they have in. So that's the secret over there, and the secret over there on the differentiator is to manage your costs and only add costs that get you the great differentiation, and those are the two ways to win.
Yeah, I think so. Me asking that question, I think I jumped ahead in terms of one of those components of the playing to win framework. So you've also kind of explained how you were inspired to develop that. Shall we kind of go through what it is and these kind of set of choices that we make?
Sure, absolutely. So what I came to the conclusion of after kind of working like that 8-year period from 87 to 95, I was just experimenting with customers about kind of, well, what choices, because I was firmly of the view that strategy is about choices to do some things and not other things. What are the important choices that get you to an advantage position? And I came to the conclusion that there are 5. What's your winning aspiration? Because you have to have an aspiration for winning. If you don't try to win, somebody else will, and then you will lose. Some of the players who try to win never do win, but if you don't try to win, you never will. Then there's some decision about what's the playing field or battlefield, depending on what metaphor you like, that you're going to play on. Because if you try to play everywhere, or you don't define that, you kind of dissipate your energy. Where are you going to concentrate and focus your energy? And then, given what customers behave like, what customers want, what customers desire in that place, how are you going to win? What is your theory that says, I can serve them better than competitors? I can either serve them with a product that's as good at a much lower cost structure, or I can serve in a distinctive way. So what's my theory of how I'm going to win? And this is often people stop with strategy there. They say, I'm done now. And then they wonder why they can't bring it to bear. I say you have to then ask the question, what are the must-have capabilities that would lie behind my how to win? Right? So P&G wants to win. My longest-serving client, P&G wants to win on the basis of branding and innovation, consumer understanding. What capabilities does it need to have? Right? And in the case of P&G, for example, it's got a capability that nobody else in the world has. For some reason, they just haven't built it up. So in R&D, they spend more in R&D than any of their competitors, but 20% of their R&D folks, literally hundreds and hundreds of them, are in something called product research. They're people with a technical background who spend their entire life on consumer understanding. So understand consumers wonderfly with the eye of I have this technology toolbox. Most of them are chemical engineers, because that's what Procter and Gamble is. It's a chemistry company more than anything else. And so they have a capability of systematically understanding customer needs better than their competitors, because nobody else of their competitors has more than maybe a half a dozen people in doing that. And Procter & Gamble has built over time this pipeline of products research people that they train up. So that's a capability that feeds their ability to innovate and understand customers so that they can create a great brands, right?
Mm.
And then so you identify what capabilities you've got to build and maintain, and the test of those is they have to pass the can't won't test. Either competitors can't replicate you, you're too big, it's too late. Vanguard, if you want to have the same cost structure as Vanguard, all you have to do is sell $7 trillion worth of index mutual. Oops. Oops. Nobody else sells even close to $1 trillion index funds. So sorry, you can't replicate their cost structure. Sorry about that, guys. They're there kind of for the foreseeable future, or won't. Sometimes competitors won't. Right? If you just think about Walmart, when Amazon was tiny, could have Walmart done a great online store and cut Amazon off at the pass? I think the answer is absolutely, right? But they didn't. Why? They didn't want to drive people away from their stores. They wanted to drive people into their stores, because they had 4,500 of them dotted across the country with billions of dollars of assets. And so they didn't, until it was too late to stop Amazon. So you have to have a theory of how you're going to win that says, here are the must-have capabilities. Competitors either can't or won't, or some combination of the two, replicate them. And then finally, when people think, oh, this is so very operational and nuts and boltsy, is the last box, enabling management systems. But I believe that you need to specify the management systems that will be necessary to build and maintain the must-have capabilities to win, where you're chosen to play to meet your winning aspiration. Which illustrates one thing about what I call the choice cascade of these five, is you've got to go up and down the choice cascade until the five answers fit together and reinforce one another, which is one of the things that makes, I say, any garden variety 11-year-old could do strategy if it weren't for one thing. And that is, those things have to fit together and reinforce. If you could just do one choice and lock and load on it, then the next choice, lock and load, you'd be fine. But that is not how strategy works. You can't.
So I guess as just for the audience that the people that haven't come across this framework, I'm going to reiterate those 5 points again. So there's the winning aspiration, where to play, how to win, the core capabilities, and the management systems. Do you mind if we go through each of those and maybe give an example in the real world? Maybe pick a client. I mean, choose whichever one you want, but I quite like the one that I've read and heard you talk about, the Olay example.
Sure.
That's a brilliant one. So in terms of the winning aspiration, what is that, and how did it work for one of your clients?
Yeah. Okay. So let's just use the Olay example, because if people want to then go and read more about it, it's in the book. We use it. So Procter and Gamble is number one or number two in every category in which it operates. Mainly number one. A couple of them number two, except when AG and Deb Henrietta, Susan Arnold and Jenna Drosis took on revitalizing the Olay strategy. It was oil of Olay was between 7th and 10th, depending on how you measured it in the industry. So a complete failure from a P&G standpoint, flat. And the very sad thing about oil of Olay at that time was it's the average age of its customer base was increasing by 1 year every year. So what does that mean? Some of your customers are dying, and no new ones are entering. So kind of it's a self-liquidating brand. So what AG and Susan Arnold and Gina Drosses said is, why don't we aim to be the #1 skincare brand in the world? Which at that point was Clinique, the Estee Lauder brand, the lowest end Estee Lauder brand, sort of it's the closest it had to mass market. So when you say that, right, it inspires you to think about how it is you can beat the other players and take space from theirs. Is it a good winning aspiration? You don't know. You'll only know is if you can find a where to play, how to win that brings it to reality, right? Otherwise, it's just sort of some silly pipe dream.
Mm.
But if you don't try to do that, if you say, well, we're #7, let's try to get up to 5, you're still going to be jerked around by the top players in the industry who will have their way, right? That's why you want to be #1 in any industry, the most powerful competitor, because then people can't jerk you around. So the winning aspiration was, let's build that. And one of the reasons for building that is we want to be the #1 beauty company in the world. L'Oreal was at the time, way far ahead. Skincare happens to be the #1 category in size within beauty overall. So we have this crummy position in skincare, and we can never be #1 in beauty without that. Okay, so that's the winning aspiration. Then there's a big where to play choice, right? It turns out that the biggest dollar volume in the industry is in what's called the prestige channel, right? That would be like, well, Harrods or Selfridges, the first floor. There's skincare and cosmetics, but also Sephora, Ulta, and specialty places like that sell products that go from maybe $20 at the low end to $500, $700 if it's La Prairie.
So just to sorry to interrupt. So just to be clear, at that point, Olay was not obviously in that prestige market. They were choosing to play in that market, and now they're competing with a whole different set of brands.
Not quite. So Olay competed in the other market, mass,
Yes.
which is your grocery stores, your pharmacies, chemists, and mass merch. So that would be the middle is the Boots of the world, and Target, Walmart, etc. The mass merchants and your local grocery stores. And in that business, the sort of price point was about $5 for one tube or vial or bottle of skincare. Clinique was the bottom of the prestige at $20, and that went from $20 to almost infinity in the. So you had a big choice.
Yeah.
Where the biggest money was in prestige, but Procter & Gamble, all its other categories were in mass. And so we had a big where to play choice. The other thing was that the skincare category had traditionally targeted, spoken to, focused itself on women 50 plus who were fighting wrinkles. That's the number one kind of reason for it. And so that was a very crowded field. And so we made the decision, the where to play decision was we are going to target women aged 25 to 49 who don't necessarily have wrinkles yet, but they're seeing their skin age in various ways. It's getting drier, it's getting tighter, there are more spots, etc. And we can convince them to become involved in skincare earlier on. And so we're not going to go right at the teeth of the competitors. We are going to stay in mass because we're just not a prestige brand. We don't know department stores. We don't know Sephora. But what we noticed by doing a bunch of research is that there's some things that women like and don't like about the prestige channel. So they like the quality of the products in prestige. They like the packaging better. It looks nicer in the bathroom, and that matters. They like the more product information that they get in that channel. But they hate two things. And if you were women, I would ask you what you hate, and you'd all say the same thing: pushy salespeople. Because in the department store, they try and sit you down in their chair, do up your face, and then try and sell you $5,000 worth of stuff because they made you feel guilty. So pushy salespeople, and an extra trip. They're not there on a weekly basis. They are in the mass channel typically on a weekly basis, so it's not an extra trip. So we said in our How to Win is, how about we create something that we call the masstige channel, right? We're going to do it in mass, but we're going to go and talk to the mass folks and say, if we created a space that was more attractive, not unlike in the prestige channel, there was more product information, better packaging, better product quality, we can cause women, so this is the pitch to the retailers, we can cause women to not make the extra trip to the prestige channel and buy here, and it'll be nice high margin product for you. And we'll have better packaging, we'll have better active ingredients by far than the mass channel that would be comparable to buying Clarins or La Prairie at $250 to $500 bucks. But we are going to do it at a price point just below Clinique. So that was the How to Win, tied to the Where to Play, right? Was this the How to Win that supported a winning aspiration? And we had to build some new capabilities. We weren't doing enough R&D in that area. We were the best R&D machine in all of CPG, but didn't invest much in a loser brand, and so we had to ramp that up. We had to work with our retailers on figuring out how to partner with them to help them upgrade, co-invest in the space to make it different. So we had to, and we had to use our superior consumer understanding to figure out what those women 25 to 49 wanted, which the other players hadn't done much of, because the biggest part of the market was at 50 plus, but we said we can develop that market. Now, you can say, so Clinique was at around $20, 20 to $25. We went to market at $18.99. Estee Lauder, right, is the number one kind of in the prestige, skincare company. Why wouldn't they come into mass and absolutely chop us off at the knees? They could have, but it was a won't, right? The won't was, yes, but Estee Lauder's got Estee Lauder, Bobbi Brown, MAC, all of these other prestige brands. And what if they took the number one prestige brand out of prestige, or not even took it out of prestige, but also sold it in mass? What would all these prestige accounts do to Estee Lauder? Right? Shoot it in the head, right? And so they had to stay there. They just couldn't, they couldn't move. So they didn't attempt to match our capabilities. And the existing mass players couldn't imagine going from a $5 point to a $20 price point. They just said that's impossible. It wasn't. But anyway, that's the capabilities. And we had to develop new management systems. Part of it was we didn't have systems in place for what we had to do with the trade to encourage them to improve their fixtures and the like. So we had to create management systems for that. We had to create management systems for sort of influencer kind of marketing, right? We hadn't, all the magazine, the beauty magazine editors, we had to get to know them and get them to say, hey, if you test out Olay versus Clarins, Clarins is 10 times as expensive, and we can't tell the difference. We had to develop that, and so that was the strategy. The enabling management systems built the must-have capabilities to win where we chose to play to meet our winning aspiration, and sure enough, our first product, Olay Total Effects, absolutely flew off the shelves, and we followed up that with Regenerous, Definity, and Pro X, so that we were actually at the $50 price point, which is like simply the retailers could barely believe it, but within about 7 or 8 years became the number one skincare brand in the world, $2 billion plus brand. Biggest skincare brand.
Wow.
Profitable.
Yeah. Roger, like just looking at your wider portfolio, and as we now alluded to, it's all about choices, right? Where do you think, or what do you think? There's a common kind of theme where businesses get their choices wrong. Is there something that always happens, and it's an obvious one, but
it's mainly lack of integration, right? So Ash or Martin, I forget, referred to a plan versus strategy before. Mm-hmm. Most do plans, and the mode of doing a plan is you get your management team together and you say to the marketing person, okay, what do we need in marketing? And he or she will say, well, we need this kind of ad budget and whatever. Sales, we need a bigger sales force. Manufacturing, we need to build these new plants. Mm-hmm. And they'll each have their initiative that they think makes their function better, right? And you add up those initiatives, you find out they cost more than you've got. The CFO says we can't spend that, and you chop them back to something, and there's your strategic plan. But what it doesn't do is have as its core what strategy is, which is an integrated set of choices, a bunch of choices together that compel the desired customer action, right? So the biggest enemy of strategy is planning, right? Planning masquerading as strategy. Planning is good and useful. It's a nice complement to strategy, but instead of saying, how could we make a set of choices that would have this compelling outcome? It's how could we do a bunch of sensible things to improve each of our functions, and each of our regions, and the like. And it's sad because it's a lot of work, right? To plan is a lot of work. To do that, to again build consensus around those, build that list, and then invest all the dollars in it. And I see it like it's so sad for me to watch, and then nothing happens of the sort the company wishes, and they're all disappointed. They say we worked so hard, and I say yes, but you didn't have a strategy. Your strategy was to be fragmented and all over the place. That was your strategy. The strategy is what you do, not what you say. I always say I can figure out the strategy of any company without reading anything they do by talking to them for a couple of hours, because I can figure out what they do, which is often has nothing to do with what they say. Nothing.
It's interesting you say that, because like most people, I guess we come into contact with companies that we work with and people we mentor. Like, I think we're part of that strategy, or that strategy movement, where we need to see activation. We need to see this thing coming to life to justify our worth, right? So it's like, long as, I think you mentioned it when you were explaining the cascade, like most strategies stop at either 1 or 2, and it's the actual activation part that actually keeps this thing alive. And the irony is, as strategists, as brand strategists, is if our strategies work, then somebody says something good about us and they start passing work on, right? And it's, so the irony in that is do your best to keep it alive, right? As long as possible.
So I concur with all of that, the but I would say is that most plans are activated, right? Because they're all doable.
Yeah.
Right. So when you say when part of the plan is we're going to build a factory,
Yeah.
chances are the factory gets built, and often it gets built on time and on budget,
Mm.
and you still lose money, right? Because you didn't have a strategy. So activation is a challenge, but you don't want to fool yourself into saying, because I've activated what's the initiatives in my plan, it'll be a good strategy. If it doesn't compel, again, what I say is that for any company, it has a whole bunch of things under its control. How much we spend on capital, how much we spend on advertising, how many people we hire, how many factories we open, or how many retail outlets we open, what we pay people, et cetera, et cetera. There's a long list of things totally under our control. What's the one thing over which we have a zero control? What's the one thing?
Roger,
Customers,
Yeah,
right? Customers
exactly.
customers either say they pull this money out of their pocket and they say, I'm going to give this money to Martin, or I'm going to give this money to Ash, or I'm going to give this money to yes, Ash, or I'm going to give this money to Wes. We have no control over that. And so the purpose of strategy is to make a bunch of choices in the areas under our control that will compel customers. Because of exactly how I'm spending this money, Martin says, I would only buy from Roger Martin Inc. And Ash and Wes might be in a different segment, and they say, why would I ever do that? But the Martin and all of his friends is a big enough segment for me to make really good bucks, being absolutely compelling. But the only way to do that is to have a set of choices that has that as its goal, to compel Martin and all of its friends to choose willingly to give me their money, not somebody else. And a laundry list of sensible things ain't going to do that. And that's the sad truth about modern business is 90% or more of what is called strategy is planning. It's making a laundry list of sensible, doable things that does not compel anybody.
But Roger, I have tons of questions, but I think one that I think is a good segue to what you're saying. Is it true that though there are several good choices that we could make, several decent strategies that we could choose from? How do you get to that direction that said, okay, we're gonna take number 2 instead of number 1 and number 3?
Yeah. Well, so one, I want to affirm what you said, right? Which is lots and lots of people in the world of strategy want to know what is the best strategy in my industry, right? And typically they go hire McKinsey, who will tell them and each of their competitors, because they work for everybody in an industry simultaneously, the same thing, and they will all converge to the same thing and destroy the industry. So that is the normal way strategy happens. The way strategy happens assumes you're wrong, Martin. There's one way. No, there are many ways to win, and the best performing industries, in my view, the best performing industries from a shareholder standpoint, a people standpoint, a consumer standpoint, are when various companies in an industry choose to win in different ways, right? Apple and Samsung, right, choose to win in different ways in their business, and the world is a better place for it. If you like the Apple closed system, the Apple look and feel, you can pay, a king's ransom for this. But if you're happy with Android as your operating system, you can either get a kind of well-designed and pretty cool Samsung, or a cheaper kind of Android-based product, because people are figuring out different ways to play and in their own way to win. How you do that that goes to, like, if you will, there are two big bodies of work within my work on strategy. One is the content of strategy, which we've been talking about here. Here are the 5 choices that are the content of strategy. And then there's the process for creating strategy. And what I encourage a company to do is come up with multiple possibilities, multiple cascades. We could do it this way: A, B, C, D, E, and then reverse engineer them. So this is one of my contributions to the world of strategy. I say, don't ask which is right. Don't ask what is true. Ask what would have to be true for one to be a great idea. What would have to be true about customers? What would have to be true about competitors? What would have to be true about us and our capabilities for that to be a great idea? Okay, we got that. Let's go to possibility 2. Same exercise. Possibility 3, possibility 4, possibility 5. So you've got 5 possibilities of different where to plays, how to wins. Not all the same where to play with different how to wins. No. Different where to plays, how to wins, capabilities, management systems. And then you ask of what would have to be true. What of the things that would have to be true are you most worried about aren't true, right? And then you can go and study those things in as depth as you can to ask the question, if it's not true, could I make it true, right? So I'm Steve Jobs. To make one like this, people have got to be willing to type on glass, something they had never been willing to do before. And you could say, well, that's a dumb idea. Nobody types on glass. They type on keyboards, right? But Steve Jobs was able to have a compelling enough offering that people learned to type on glass. And now I think, not for people of our age, but kiddies, right, I think are way more comfortable typing on glass than on a keyboard. Like a keyboard's kind of weird, like, give me my glass, right? So you have to ask the question, if it's not true, to what extent am I confident in a set of actions that would make that thing true? And so you choose the strategy for which you have the most confident that the what would have to be trues are either true now or can be made true. And maybe that's number 3, or maybe that's number 1, or maybe that's number 5. But you give a chance to a variety of possibilities rather than converging quickly on one. In my view, that's what is consistent with great strategy. And what it enables you to do is really focus. Okay, 3 is awesome, except this one thing. But here is the set of steps that we can take to make that one thing happen. Like Procter & Gamble, invented the disposable diaper. And what would have to be true for the disposable diapers was moms would be willing to try it.
Mm.
And it was definitively not true that they would. And so what did Procter & Gamble do? Procter & Gamble engaged in what is still and this was, over 50 years ago, the biggest in-store demonstration effort that the world has ever seen. There'd be somebody in every store, in the baby aisle, kind of with a little doll, a realistic looking doll with baby, and showing.
No, I was hoping for real crap.
Yes.
It was fake.
No, it was fake crap. But they showed moms, here's how you can take this thing. It's not so scary. It's pretty actually easy to do. It's really a lot like cloth, and you pin it because it didn't have tabs in those days. And safety pin, blah blah blah. And so they made something that was false true, and invented what is still to this day their biggest brand. It's $10 billion brand. And so that's how you choose. And it's in my view, people tend to focus more in my work on the cascade. But what I call the strategic choice structuring process, in my view, is as important, because it helps you continue to reinforce the notion that it's an integrated set of choices that must compel customer action. It's an integrated set of choices that must. It's an integrated set of choices that must compel action. You got to just keep at that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that going back and the process. It's not just a linear thing. Roger,
Yes, that's correct.
yeah, Roger. There's so many questions in the comments. Do you mind if we just tackle some of them from the audience?
No, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So there's one here, which is a great one. It's always coming up in most topics. With the rise of AI and data-driven decision making, how do you see playing to win evolving?
Well, let me take that into two parts: the data-driven decision-making part first, then AI. And this is a bugaboo of mine, but last time I checked, and you lads, correct me if I'm wrong, 100% of the world's data is from what era?
Oh, it's 10 years, isn't it?
The past.
Yeah.
The past.
Yeah.
We have no data about the future.
Yeah.
100% of our data is about the past.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to engage in data-based decision making, you're going to analyze the data to tell you what to do, right? If you guys all took a statistics course at one point or another, I believe you did, your statistics professor said, if you're going to make any inference about the universe, right, you need to have a sample, right, that is representative, right? So if I go out and ask a bunch of men what they like in their electric vehicle, I can't say this is what people like, because there are these things called women, right, out there as well. My sample of men was not representative of what I'm trying to understand, okay? And what they said is, if you don't have a representative sample, you must not attempt to extrapolate from data and analytics to what you should do, because you'll make terrible, horrible mistakes, okay? So if we understand that all data is from the past, right, at the time you're analyzing it, all data is from the past, right? And we need a representative sample to be able to make a valid inference about the phenomena in the universe we're trying to understand. If you use data analytics to make decisions, you're making a huge implicit assumption, right? And that is that the future is identical to the past. Because if the future is identical to the past, your sample is indeed representative. It doesn't matter that it's all about the past, because the future's the same, so you're good, right? If the future's not like the past, then you've used an unrepresentative sample and you're going to make a stupid choice. So you guys tell me, in the world of business, I believe you guys spend your life in the world of business, how many times is the future identical to the past?
Never. Watch the results of the American elections. Well, actually, in that case, was identical, but no one will ever say. You know, Roger, it makes me think about the difference between data and insights. One of the things that came to mind for some weird reason is like intelligence is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing it doesn't go in a fruit salad.
Yes. Yes.
So it's about what you do with the data, right?
And do you and the fundamental question is, do you say I will do what the data says?
Yeah.
And if you do, you are making a absolutely fundamental error. And so we are heading in a direction of a supernova blowout on data analytics, where it's going to become more and more obvious that our obsession with data analytics is going to blow up in our face entirely. Now, I'd like to say I'm the really smart guy who figured this out, right? You know who figured this out? Aristotle. 2,500 years ago, Aristotle, who invented science, by the way, right, is the
Mm.
guy who invented analytica posteriori. He invented the notion. He was the first human to really study how could you determine the cause of a given effect.
Mm.
You see an effect, you want to figure out the cause. And he said, here's how you do. You do this experiments and gather data to be able to figure that out. And the world then went to sleep for 2,000 years, woke up and had the scientific revolution. Bacon, Descartes, Galileo, Newton created the scientific method. No, they didn't. They formalized what Aristotle said. And we've gone ever more crazy on that. But Aristotle issued a warning 2,500 years ago. He said, there are two parts of the world. There's a part of the world where things cannot be other than they are. If I let go of this, what happens?
It drops. Yeah.
How about last week?
It still drops.
I think.
How about England? How about
Also
how
dropping.
about next week? That's part of the world because there's a universal force called gravity that pushes everything down. It never changes. So if I do experiments in how fast this pen accelerates, I will find it accelerates at 9.8 meters per second squared, except in America, because we're exceptional. It accelerates at 32 feet per second squared. But that's the part of the world where things cannot be other than they are. And Aristotle said, in that part of the world, use my method. Why? Because the sample is representative. The future is the same as the past, so any analysis from the past is good. Then he said, there's another part of the world. It's this part. How many of these things, smartphones, were there in 1999? Any guesses?
Not a clue. Not many.
Zero. The first smartphone was 2000, the BlackBerry in 2000. How many of these are there now?
God knows. Billions.
5.5 billion last time I checked the numbers. It might be more at this point. That's where the future can be other than the past. Right?
Yeah.
And you know what Aristotle said about that? Remembering, he invented the scientific method. Do not use my scientific method. He didn't say, "Oh, be careful, maybe use it, maybe not." He said, "Don't."
Just don't bother.
This gives hope to.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say this gives hopes to creatives in the role of strategy as well, because you need to have that creative input, right? And
absolutely,
because you're designing a future.
Yes. And what did he say in that world? He said two things: don't do it, don't use my scientific method. And he said, in that world, the rigorous thinking process is to imagine possibilities and choose the one for which the most compelling argument can be made. And he wrote a book called Rhetoric that talked about how you make arguments. What Aristotle believed is that if you are dealing with the part of the world where things can be other than they are, what should happen is West should think about it and imagine possibilities. Ash should, Martin should, Roger should, and then we should get together and argue the logic of why what we do, what I think makes sense. And Ash would argue his, West would, Martin would, and through that process of dialogue, we would come to a conclusion that this time, whatever, Ash's is most compelling. We do not come to the conclusion Ash is right, because you don't know. You don't, you're trying to create a future. And we decide Ash is most compelling. Here's what Ash is thinking about consumers, and here's what Ash is thinking about what we could do here. And if you put that all together, we could do this. And then we go do it. And we see whether we can create that future. That's what he said. And so the entire strategy industry, is based on listening to half of what Aristotle said, here's the scientific method, and ignoring the other half of what the same guy said. And it's just like nuts. It's nuts. It's like,
And that's the thing.
How can you believe him and not believe him at the same time? But that's an entire industry. It's what business schools teach. And Ash, you're absolutely right. Strategy is a creative exercise. Strategy is not an analytical exercise. If you make it an analytical exercise, you are taking out a large caliber shotgun and blowing your foot off and then asking, why the hell is my foot bleeding?
Yeah, and that's
You shot it off.
that's the thing with that as well. The choice that you make. Your strategy is not guaranteeing success, is it? It's you're
Shortening your
optimizing
odds.
it, increasing
All
Yeah.
strategy can ever do is shorten your odds from the odds of my success. If I just do a bunch of random shit, or I do use data analytics to tell me what to do, my odds of success are 100 to 1. And if I think carefully about strategy, do what Aristotle says, have a bunch of smart people arguing with one another, about here's why mine is more compelling than yours, and choosing it, you get it down to 5 to 2 or something like that. Short odds, but you never get it to 100% probability. And retrospectively, it looks like, oh, gee, Steve Jobs, that was obvious. Yeah, you rounded corners and ease of use, that's so obvious. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right, so let's move into some interesting questions about you.
Okay.
So on the cooler, we like to kind of let our audience know a bit more about you or our guests that they probably never heard before. So I always ask a few random questions,
Sure.
off the cuff.
Yeah.
But let's talk about like some leaders that you've met. Who's kind of like the most interesting leader you've worked with from an insight point of view?
Well, I loved working with AG. He's fantastic. But another one of my favorite people I worked with Tina Brown on the turnaround of the New Yorker magazine. And everybody thinks she's sort of this flaky kind of, she spends like a drunken sailor, flaky kind of prima donna. She's a really, really good business thinker. Nobody would think so, but I loved working with her. I loved working with Jim Hackett, who I worked for a dozen years at Steelcase. And he's the guy who got totally into design. He's the guy who bought IDEO, right? IDEO was owned by Steelcase for a decade, as you probably know. So he bought a design firm to transform it. And then after he retired from that, he went onto the board of Ford and eventually got appointed CEO of Ford. And I worked with him closely there. He's one of the most interesting thinkers. He's like a huge supporter, was the first corporate supporter of the Santa Fe Institute, for example. So he bought IDEO, is like totally into the Santa Fe complex adaptive systems guys. And so he would be another one who I have very high regard for. And he is so much fun.
So on that, what does Roger do outside of strategy? Come on, tell us.
Not much anymore.
Never.
I love traveling the world with my lovely wife, and seeing the world, kind of eating. I'm a sports fan. Watch sports. I used to play more sports. I play fewer now. I was fanatically into tennis. I actually used to be the chair of the board of Tennis Canada, the equivalent of the LTA. And then you guys stole our CEO because we did such a fabulous job. Michael Downey went from our CEO to the LTA CEO before he.
Do you like music?
I do. I like reggae more than probably any.
I love that. So, what song do you sing in the shower?
No Woman, No Cry. That's my favorite. That's my favorite song. Yeah.
I'm in that camp with you, mate. I think we all are.
Are you a reggae boy? And didn't you love the Marley movie?
I love the Broadway performance as well.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Like typically, I don't know if you find this in movies. Like I was also a gym rat, a basketball player, and any basketball movie, I say, well, that's not how you shoot a basketball or whatever. And so when you're really, kind of know something about it, you kind of are much pickier, I find. And I just loved the Marley movie. I thought he was played wonderfully. British guy, right?
Yeah.
British actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to be
The
on.
Broadway
Yeah.
is really good too. Like if you ever see the Broadway, it's amazing. Like,
I will look. I actually didn't know there was.
yeah,
Did Broadway precede the movie
yeah,
version?
yeah. And I
Oh,
think it
okay.
was almost an adaptation from that.
From
They got
that. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
amazing. Like,
Didn't know that. Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. So I don't know how many people you've told that before, but that's a win.
No,
That's
nobody
yeah.
probably.
And then
My wife knows because whenever it's on, I've heard enough, and she's
and
like,
then
she likes
I've got
reggae too, but she
I've
rolls
got
her
one
eyes.
more question. I want more.
Yeah, shoot.
If you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
You mean, should I assess what I have already as what would
Well,
be the
no,
best thing, or if I
not.
could get one that I don't have?
Yeah, get a new one. You've already owned this one. Get a new one.
I guess it would be if I had a better power to understand how to get somebody to kind of change their mind. It would be great. The hardest thing, well, not so much manipulate, but just help them understand, because there's lots of things I do. Like Peter Drucker was a friend, a mentor, lovely human being, and I always said, well, Peter Drucker would say X in year Y, and everybody would say, well, that's stupid. Management by objectives, what a silly idea. 25 years later, everybody's like, well, obviously you have to manage by objectives. So it's 25 years. So there are often things that I say, like I said, giving guidance is stupid. I said that in 2000. Like that's stupid. It'll eventually disappear. And I was on boards and they were like, no, it's part. Now, 25 years later, that whole thing is slowly but surely disappearing. I wish I could shorten that, because a bunch of things I say, it takes so long for people to say what Roger's saying makes sense. And I wish I had a superpower of sort of figuring out how I could communicate it in a way that would help them change their minds, because a bunch of the things, they'd be a hell of a lot better off if they sort of were willing to adopt a, to them, novel, shocking kind of different way of looking at something.
Well, I, for one, am surprised that not everyone agrees with your advice. So, but there must be a minority of people that don't have the faith.
No, it's because a lot of things, like when I'm saying on a like I will say on a strategy thing, if you persist in this, so I'm at a company, if you persist in this is what's going to happen. It's going to blow up and it's going to be horrible. And then they do it and it blows up and it was horrible. And I'm like, how could I do that better? And I've learned to do it to figure out more things about that. But Wes, you asked the question, that would be the superpower I'd want, which is to be able to unlock the what's going on in their head in a way that enables me to be persuasive faster.
Amazing. Love that.
We're a little over the hour.
Yes,
so thank you so much for your time. It's very generous of you. Where should people follow you? Obviously, Medium. That's been, you've been hugely successful there in a very short space of time with your writing.
Medium. My website is just www.rogerlmartin.com. You have to put the L in, or it goes to a real estate broker in Houston who's a very nice man. He always sends emails to me, and they're very nice. I send him free my books, but I don't like to bug him so much. So rogerlmartin.com, and I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn. That's the only social media.
What's on the horizon? Any more books? Anything new coming out? Should we watch out for anything new?
I am writing a book with my wife, who is my partner in RLMI, on romantic business couples.
I guess that strategy worked out well for you.
Yeah, it did. But couples who are romantic couples, are married or whatever, and run a business together. So that is the next one. That's probably a couple of years away, though.
That's a challenge.
Yes. Exactly.
Roger, Thank you very much for your time. I mean, we could have gone on for days,
Yeah.
honestly, but this is the time that we have. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. So thank you very much. Have a lovely
Okay.
weekend.
Thank you guys. That was lots of fun. You
I
guys take
appreciate
care.
you, man. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thanks so
I'll
much.
sign off.
Peace.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, what about that? Huh?
That's the end of the
Awesome.
Watercooler then, is it? Our mission is complete. We can sign off and we'll never do Watercooler.
Your
Yeah.
mission of listener is not complete. You have to subscribe, like, share, tell a friend, tell a parent, tell your wife, chat
Yeah.
with your grandmother. Please do support each other because the more you watch, the bigger the guests get. I mean,
Yeah.
bigger than
Amen.
this strategy is going to be really tough.
I just want to state something. We've had a first ever on the cooler here. So not only we had Roger Martin, but we've had someone that's in the chat pause a workshop and play our live to the client.
Really?
Did they? I didn't see that comment.
I'm not telling you who. No, they were in my WhatsApp. They were like, "I've just paused my workshop because this is
Oh.
so relevant to what we're talking about, and I'm making the client watch right now."
Amazing.
So that's it.
I'm glad we didn't do a lot of speaking and swearing as usual. Roger
Yeah,
did most of it.
So that your friend in WhatsApp, can we send them the invoice then?
Yeah. We'll definitely collaborate eventually.
Yeah. Right, guys. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
See you in a couple of weeks. Hush, hush on the guest though.
Shh.
See you soon.